Hi, welcome to Olive and Hawthorne. Why Olive and Hawthorne, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. My name is Olive, and I live in a hawthorn bush. So that explains that. My girlfriend gave me an olive plant years ago. It started out very, very tiny, and it's humongous, and it's in my office. And someday you might see that. Actually, I probably will be doing stuff from there from time to time, and you'll see it. And coincidentally, she gifted me a little branch from a hawthorn plant. And those are very cool. They're very spiky, very crown of thorns, and they have these little red flowers that come out, and they're very hardy. You can't really kill them. The perfect plant for me. And she's the same person that gave me the olive and the hawthorn, and I loved combining those two names. And in fact, I love combining everything, and I love naming things. So to me, it was just perfect to combine the concept of what this channel is. It's kind of like a reflection of my life. You'll be seeing things all the way from sourdough making to enjoying cocktails, recreating dishes that we've had in restaurants or tried and true treasures. How's that for alliteration? That my husband and I want to explore. He's not a cook, but he makes a great maple old fashioned. So that's just a side. We might not have, go through that as far as a recipe, but maybe we will. And we'll discuss stuff. And, I'm not going to say, if you like this, subscribe and ring that bell and all that jazz. I think YouTube has been on for enough time that we know how it works. If you want to do those things, you certainly can. I'd appreciate it. But if you don't, I don't blame you. It's really totally up to you in this day and age. And anyway, so what I wanted to talk about today, and by the way, timestamp, it's January 1st, 2024. Happy New Year to you. And I just thought this is probably the best way to launch this. That I'm going to be talking about a variety of subjects, but the one that's really, really on my heart these days is the magic of sourdough. I have never been a bread maker. That's true. In fact, my husband gave me the bread Bible, and it was too mathy. It was too scientific, and it didn't turn me off. I loved the illustrations and just the way that this woman wrote about bread making. It was like, wow, someday, or those people are in a league of their own, of their very own. So it came as a surprise to me last April when I got the notion to dive into sourdough. And that was kind of born by some sadness in my life. In 2020, when everybody was jumping on making sourdough at home or having puppies at home, puppies, getting new animals because they were finding themselves in their homes working remotely. That's when I saw a resurgence of sourdough in my life. I was seeing everybody making it, and I was just like, I refuse. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna make sourdough bread, and it's too out there and too trendy. Okay, and I just wasn't having any of that. My mom at the time was in a nursing home, and I wasn't able to see her for months and months in person. And finally, I believe it was 2021 that I was able to see her in person, in the flesh, get to hug her. We had to wear a mask, of course, for a lot of that time. Anyway, flash forward to January 1st of 2023. That's right. 1 year ago today, I was on holiday, and one of the nurses called saying, your mom's not doing well. She's not eating. She's got good days. She's got bad days. But my mom was just showing signs that she was getting real tired, and her body was, and her time on this earth was coming to a close. I let my sister know. My sister is from New Mexico, and she, as things were progressing in the month of January for my mom, my sister came to Massachusetts to stay with her son and daughter-in-law and her grandkids, and thought that she would be here for just a month. And it turned out to be a 3-month process with my mom. My mom succumbed to her illness on April 27th, 2023. And by that time, I had decided that I wanted to get into bread making. It was an idea that I had probably in late March, as it was getting closer towards my mom's end, that I was like, oh, maybe this could be something that I could dive into, invest in. And so I started perusing, and I got a sourdough starter from Etsy. It was dehydrated. It was from a bakery in San Francisco. I was like, well, it was $7, free shipping. I'm in. And so I read the instructions and I fed that thing. And, after 7 days, they say, oh, you can, start to bake. Well, I didn't start to bake. I just kept feeding it. And I had a huge jar that I keep my flour in now, but that was the dehydrated bits. And I kept feeding it. And finally I had like this monster. And one of the things about sourdough making, one of the parallels to life is discarding is necessary. The more you feed into, the more you have to feed. And to break that, you have to let go. You have to discard. And so I learned that lesson. And you know what? Isn't it good to be able to live life enough and make some mistakes and see where some hindrances are? Take 2. Hindrances are. Hindrances. That's a weird word. All right. Where things hold you back from moving ahead. And if you never discard the starter, you're never going to get anywhere. So the point is, it's good to let go. It's good to discard. There are tons of recipes out there for discard. I make a wonderful pumpkin bread. It's a quick bread, and you use sourdough starter in that recipe. So you can discard into making meals with it. I have a friend that makes the flour and like a roux with his discard, and that's how lovely will that be. So back to wherever I was. Back to January 1st, 2024, back to the beginning. Oh, yeah, the beginning. So I got my sourdough starter. It might have been late March of 2023. My mom was still hanging in there, but it was getting, harder and harder for her and for my sister and I, who were visiting with her daily. And I think I was a little bit intimidated by starting the starter. But when I started it on day 1 was Easter Sunday. And coincidentally enough, Easter Sunday of 2023 was April 4th. And it was a Sunday. Easter Sunday, hello. It was also the 13th anniversary of my dad's passing. And so there was just like a lot of things, piling and making this like, okay, this is the day that I'm going to be beginning this. And so I fed it until it was this ginormous thing that I eventually had to let go, discard. And fast forward to the date that I started, and I actually began the process of making my first loaf of sourdough bread the weekend that my mom passed away. And to me, just all that symbolism added up to being able to feed into something that was wild, that it was a process. It was almost like caring for something, nurturing something back to life. All those things, beginning it on Easter Sunday, adding stuff to it to wake it up, that it's not going to die, it's going to live, and it will live as long as you keep feeding it and discarding, giving life, letting go of things, nurturing it. Anyway, that is the process that I began on. And it is now January 1st, 2024. I have successfully baked a loaf of sourdough for 8 months. And even in the midst of that, with my oven dying, my oven literally died in the summer, and I have been making sourdough through my crockpot, waiting for this very month to buy a new oven. Full circle. I'm not there yet because we waited until January where the deals were better. And so I'm just kind of waiting for that. In the meantime, I'm here to tell you that you can make a great loaf of sourdough bread even in the crock pot. So that all to say, this is where I'm starting. And there'll be more as the weeks progress. And I'm just really happy to be sharing this because it's been on my heart for a long time. And if it's something that interests you, then I'm happy to have you aboard. I actually wanted to do this in part because my friend who gave me the olive and the hawthorn wants to learn how to do sourdough. And it is a multi-step process. Not only is it multi-steps, it's multi-days. And that is not as daunting as it sounds. I'm here to say you can do it. It didn't click with me until after a good long time. So I'm saying you can progress, you can move ahead, and you can actually be satisfied with what you make out of it. And so more later. In the meantime, have a wonderful, wonderful day.